The Raiders decided to address their quarterback problem through free agency. But is their new guy going to be able to do enough to make everybody around him fantasy relevant? Let's talk about the Raiders. Breaking news, per Adam Schefter on Twitter, the Raiders have decided to go the free agent route to get their quarterback, as former 49ers quarterback is going to stay out west in a different conference and go to the Raiders. What does this mean for them, though? But they decide to give Jimmy G a 3-year, $67.5 million deal that includes another $34 million guaranteed. So Jimmy G ends up leaving San Francisco and going to a situation that honestly probably won't be too bad for him fantasy-wise. Now, as far as Jimmy G goes as a top fantasy option like quarterback, I just don't think it is ever going to happen. Is the change from a Kyle Shanahan to McDaniels really that good of a... No, not really. I mean, I would take Kyle Shanahan as an offensive mind over McDaniels any day of the week. So as far as Jimmy Garoppolo goes, he's still going to be kind of one of those guys that just gets the job done for you. Is he going to be a top 12 quarterback with high upside? Probably not. But are we really interested in him being our fantasy quarterback? No, it's the guys around us that we're interested in. What does this mean for Davante Adams? Honestly, for me, I don't love it. Now, is it bad for Davante Adams? I don't think it's bad. But me personally, he's more of a low-end wide receiver, maybe mid-end wide receiver right now than he would be a high-end wide receiver one. Why is that? Well, you take a look at a guy like Deebo Samuel, who a couple of years ago was a top-end wide receiver option, and he had Jimmy G as a quarterback then. But during that time frame, Deebo Samuel was utilized more as a running back and had a ton of rushing touchdowns to go with it. So that's just a completely different scenario, and he was utilized a completely different way. When you take a look at just overall wide receiver play since Jimmy G's been a quarterback, there's not really anything that has stood out for us. I mean, when you take a look at the numbers of when Jimmy G has been a full-time starter, the biggest beneficiary of that was George Kittle. So utilizing the tight end and Darren Waller might be something that we do need to be excited about. For me, Darren Waller was still going to be a top 5 play at the position this year, and with Jimmy G, really just solidifies that for me. He loved himself some George Kittle. He's going to love himself some Darren Waller. Now back to Deebo Samuel. I mean, in 2021, he did have well over 100 targets, and he had over 1,400 receiving yards. But again, a lot of his fantasy points came from rushing touchdowns. That's not something we're getting from Davante Adams. And keep in mind how Deebo Samuel is utilized as well. He's utilized on different routes out of the backfield, quick swing routes, slants over the middle of the field, and then his ability to accelerate, create explosion, and pick up yards after the catch is really what has made him what was such a dominating force back in 2021. Now again, that play style doesn't fit Davante Adams. So if we're looking for 1,400 yards from Davante Adams, I don't know if that's going to come into play. But again, a low-end wide receiver one, I think, is still his floor with Jimmy G, a season in which he brings in maybe 1,100 receiving yards and close to double-digit touchdowns is what I would like to see. But what about the run game? Really, we just need Jimmy G to be just good enough that Josh Jacobs can do what he did last year. Is Jimmy G going to be better than what Derek Carr was this past year? Honestly, I don't think so. Will he be just as good? I don't see why not. And if he can be at least just as good, that's going to give more than enough opportunity for Josh Jacobs to have huge numbers once again. They're using the franchise tag on Josh Jacobs. I don't see him going anywhere, and a deal could still potentially get done. So the main 3 options that we're looking at, Darren Waller, this is a win for him in my opinion. I'm locking him into the top 5 tight ends. Davante Adams, it's not a great win for me. I would have rather seen a little bit of a different move for him, but honestly, he's still a low-end wide receiver one at worst, mid wide receiver one at best. Probably. And then Josh Jacobs, I do think Josh Jacobs, again, could be a very, very solid top 10 option. Yo, in the comments down below, leave me a message. Let me know what you think about this signing, what's good, what's bad. Hit that like button for me on the way out and click the subscribe button if you're new here. Ladies and gentlemen, peace out, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see y'all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.
Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same.